Thank you so much for joining us today. How are you doing?
Yeah, really good. Thanks for having me. It's a great opportunity to have a chat.
Awesome. Thank you for agreeing to joining our series. And we're very excited about the conversation that we're going to have today about what you're doing at Houzz, your role, and deep dive into what culture means for your business and how you're fostering culture now that we're moving into a hybrid environment. So let's get started. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your journey, and what you do at Houzz?
Yeah, sure. So I guess I've had a pretty diverse background. I started off as a failed actor, ended up selling straws at flavoured milk across the world, and then sort of haphazardly fell into this world of fast growth digital businesses and been with Houzz for the last 7 years, or 6.5. Was there part of the team that first helped us set it up in Australia and putting the furniture together when there was just 2 or 3 of us. Now I look after the team overall, and I guess it's primarily a sales and marketing function, but a bit of a utility player, bit of a shoulder to cry on, a pep up talk, a cheerleader in the background, anything that sort of needs to be done.
A little bit of everything. And previously we talked about your entrepreneurial journey, which is amazing. And maybe that's a conversation for another time. I'm pretty sure our audience would love to hear about it. But how are things today at Houzz? What's the team feeling like in these days of remote work?
Yeah, so it's crazy. Oh, you have to excuse my dog and kids jumping in the background.
It's part of remote.
But that case in point, remote environment. 100%. I didn't set that up. That wasn't a setup. I think people are doing okay. It's been a crazy year. Everyone's exhausted. Everyone's a little bit drained, but doing as well as we can with, dogs, unexplained circumstances, everything happening. Yep. I think part of the thing that's gotten us through it so well is our ability to, we've been very lucky and kept perspective on how things have sort of progressed, and I think we've been really grateful for how things have evolved for our business. You've had industries decimated, lives lost, jobs lost, and for the most part, we've been incredibly lucky. And I feel like that sense of perspective and gratitude has really helped us get through. On a micro level, though, it is different, right? It was a really sudden shift and a significant break from what we were used to and how we used to behave. As exhibited by my 3-year-old. Hi, I'm doing an interview.
That is so
this
awesome.
Whole world sort of shifting, and it's not without its challenges, right? So it's definitely been a trying year, but one that's also been really gratifying in a lot of ways as well.
I love to hear that, like your perspective and how you talk so much about gratitude, and it's hard, but it's not that bad when you see it from a lens of how fortunate we are. What happened in, maybe if we move back to March and April, when things went really crazy and we had to adapt to this new way of work, what was Houzz's approach into letting people know and showing support in this new way of work?
Yeah, well, I mean, practically, it was such a radical and significant shift, right? We had actually had our President's Club, our big sales event over in Mexico, and people from all around the world flew over to a beautiful resort in Cabo. And just after that, that was actually when the lockdown started to really sit down and happen. I guess for us, we were primarily an in-office team. Sales, there was a lot of energy in the team. Yep. And a lot of our systems and processes were predominantly set up on that interpersonal face-to-face environment. So it was a really radical shift to take that and go digital first. And technology-wise, realistically, 15 years ago, I don't know if we could have been able to do it. Strength of internet, the quality of calls and the different systems and tools may not have been up to scratch, but with an amazing IT team, a really flexible approach from managers and the team themselves, we were quickly able to shift to a sort of new modality.
So that's, I guess one of the biggest challenges for many businesses was like understanding what tools, especially from an IT point of view, they had to start investing to. How are you doing today, and what's the plan for the future in terms of going back to the office or not?
Yeah, so a lot of it was firstly just getting people up to speed, making sure that they have the right equipment, the right bandwidth, all the practical stuff. really indexing on video calls, all the rest. And then moving back, I guess we are still remote at the moment, exhibited now, but we are planning in Australia going back in mid-Jan. And in mid-Jan, it's likely to be a partial reopening that will be a few days a week, voluntary. And realistically, I feel we don't have the full answers yet, but hybrid and a mixed modality would definitely be a way of the future. I feel it was a macro trend anyway. So it's where the world was heading, and the last 9 months have really just accelerated it, right? So it's just exacerbated and made that faster. We don't know what that answer is going to be, right? But we do know that we'll be testing out different models, different days, different team structures, just to see how it works best.
And how do you see the office, like the actual physical space in that scenario?
Yeah.
Do you have any plans for that?
Yeah, well, we've got an idea of what it could look like, but we are going to test out different models. It could be everyone in on the same days. So you try to recreate that experience of everyone hustling and bustling around the water cooler or the rest. Or it might be physically spaced out so people can sort of have social distancing and be appropriately spaced. So we've got a couple of different options that we'll work through, but yeah, it's going to be a little bit of test, iterate and learn, but there is definitely a strong desire for people to get back in some form. In fact, I went in with our leadership team yesterday to physically move furniture around and clear out the rubbish just to start preparing for that socially distanced environment. And it felt a little bit like visiting a ghost town, but it was definitely exciting at the same time.
How are you? What is the sentiment you're getting from your team? Not only the leadership team, but the broader team, in sense of, are they rushed about going back into the office? Or they want still some flexibility? What are you hearing?
It's definitely a flexible approach is the clear message. And there's a spectrum. Some people want more interpersonal interaction, some people want less, but everyone does have a desire to get a taste of both. And I think what we've proven, our office, our team, our society as a general, is that definitely a hybrid working model feels like it's where it's going. Employees are going to demand more flexibility. I imagine those sort of wider trends of people being less tied down to these inner city hubs and moving more regionally and remotely and having more flexibility, not only in where they work and how they travel, but also as a result where they live, what hours that they work, what sort of times that they engage. And I feel the challenge that we'll have to constantly learn and evolve is how do we get that right balance, picking what tasks and what things go to what people at what times.
That's super exciting, and I think we're about to, or in the next 12 to 18 months, we're gonna see a lot of new ways of work. It's gonna be very interesting how society changes, how the city changes, people moving outside of the cities, and as they ask for more flexibility at work, probably gonna start commuting less, so that means they can move a little bit farther out of town. So it's really exciting to see what things are going to look like in 18, 24 months.
Yeah, massively so. And it's exciting to be part of that as well, right? And seeing what works, but also reciprocally what doesn't from time to time, because I don't think we're always going to get it right first time round. And
100%. I think we're all going to learn about it together, and it's going to be an exciting journey for all of us. Let's dive a little bit into what culture is, and especially for you at Houzz. What is it like? How do you define culture?
Sure, I guess it's such a broad and loaded term, right? So culture can be defined by so many different things to so many different people, right? From a personal perspective, I really see culture as the glue that holds everything together, right? It's like this sense of values that translates into a shared understanding, and that really helps connect people to help move things forward. And I feel with a void of culture or the absence of it, there's that lack of understanding and it stops things getting done. I feel particularly people can misinterpret the notion of culture as just the sort of peripheral trappings and perks. Now, as a sort of Valley-funded company, we invest heavily in staff, and those perks and benefits are a key part of what we offer our team, because we think that they add value, right? So
Yep.
you've got a beautiful environment, the meals, the activities, drinks, like that is all great. But I feel what it's sort of exacerbated and shown in this sort of remote time is those are peripheral. They are lovely and they're great and the cream on top of the sundae. But for me, the culture is really the core traits that sit underneath, right? Can I be myself at work? Do I feel valued? Can I articulate and feel like I can progress? And,
Yep.
you know, obviously I believe we are wonderful and do everything fantastically, but I do feel the team at Houzz we've done a good job in defining what are our values. And we have a simple set of 3 core values. We are a family, we build the future, and we make things happen. And I feel like that sort of blend in terms of, well, who are we and how do we connect and communicate? But also at the same time, having a focus on performance and innovation, that does set a framework to sort of help define where we head. And to me, I feel like those foundations are critical to everything we do in terms of results, performance, growth, all the rest. It all comes from that cultural foundation.
And now that we're moving into this hybrid world, I guess the big challenge is how to move that into an environment where people are not seeing and interacting face to face on a daily basis.
Absolutely.
How are you planning to or how do you think that is going to impact the way you've traditionally built that company culture inside the business?
Yeah, it's a really good question because it is a challenge, right? And we had spent so much time building and refining something that worked in a modality where people are interacting with each other in person. We are no longer in that context. So the same tools won't necessarily solve the issue because the context is different. So we're searching and struggling, I guess, like everyone else, in terms of, well, what are those things that can help create those that are genuine and authentic? Like you can't force it. And I think what all of us are sort of learning and growing at the moment is you can't sort of square peg round hole it. You have something that used to work and you can't just jam it in a little bit, do it a little bit more. And if it doesn't work, it's not going to land, right? So how do we think of these new solutions and new modalities to stay true to ourselves and bring that to life? We're listening a lot. We're doing a lot of surveys and asking stuff. What are we doing well? Where are we dropping off? What isn't as good as what it used to be? But also reciprocally, what are you enjoying about this new environment? What are we doing well in this context? And a lot of testing, a lot of learning, a lot of falling on our face as well. But hoping that we get there eventually because ultimately we have to, right?
And what are the things that you're doing wrong according to the team? What are the things that you think you could do better moving forward? And what are the things that you think you're nailing and doing great at?
Yeah, so a lot of closely related, and it is that sort of void about what people used to love, which is those interpersonal connections and interactions. And if our only engagement is over Zoom or over work calls, and it's all about metrics and numbers and results, you're missing that interpersonal foundation and touch to make people feel connected and valued. So we've tried different things that I think have worked to a certain extent. So when we have a team stand-up or connection, we'll create additional space where people can just interact and have a chat about their weekend afterwards, but help facilitate those shared interactions that used to occur organically. We felt the team was exhausted and fatigued, and sometimes like we go back to gratitude and appreciation. It is just that little note of thanks. So, you know, we sent out a little candle with a handwritten note just to be like, hey, G,
awesome.
Thanks for the year. We really value what we've done. It was not easy. And it wasn't generic. It was personalized to like, you know, it wasn't dear valued employee. It was related to something that went on. So, you know, trying to bring in a human touch and a human element. But it's not easy. And I feel like a lot of the time we've been working really hard to stimulate activities and games and engagement and require interaction. And sometimes that additional requirement, people are a bit worn out. You know, they don't necessarily want to dress up and take a photo on a morning call, even though it's fun. So it's trying to get that balance right. I feel for the most part, we've done a relatively good job, but what excites me about what you guys do is about how do you facilitate something organically and authentically without it feeling forced? And it's that really fine line and that fine balance to get it right.
100%. And that's something we believe that it's the key component, I guess, in when it comes to building that or fostering those relationships that need to happen remotely. It is
Yeah.
hard to do though, and we're still trying to figure out what is the best approach to that, like fostering those organic interactions that are so, I guess, easy to find on a face-to-face environment, right? You
Yeah.
just randomly find yourself in the kitchen having a conversation with someone you didn't expect to see that day, and that just happens. Where that's one of the privileges of being in the same space
It is
physically.
about layers of relationships and experiences, though.
Yeah,
And so sometimes stuff does take time to layer those on top, but
yeah,
it is creating the environment for that to organically happen. And I feel
correct.
at the start, we struggled to do that effectively. We try to consciously correct for that. Um, Time will tell if we're far enough along that continuum to get it right yet.
And I think that that goes really well into the question, to the next question that I had
Yep.
was, where do you think companies could go wrong when testing
Yeah.
these new things?
Yeah, I think the first thing is everyone will go wrong, right? It is new, so we are bound to automate
So
mistakes,
true.
and that's
Yeah.
fine. So I feel like
Yep.
it's removing that spectrum of right, wrong, or the rest. So obviously, better to try it out, get it completely wrong, and learn than sit and do nothing, right? I feel like the natural inclination is to go with what we know. So go and test what we know worked previously. But the reality is, what we were saying before, the context has shifted. So going with the old solution is unlikely to work in the new context. And I think taking our time again, we probably would have done exactly the same thing because you're so stretched and you're moving so fast.
Yep.
Taking that time to think about, well, what is this new context? And with fresh eyes, approach it to be, what is the optimum solution for this environment and this time, as opposed to trying to recreate what we had previously. And I think that subtle differentiation is where most of us are probably just a little off the mark.
One of the things that we get a lot is we have like people like yourself who have a lot of people that need to support, but there is one key person inside a business that is probably a team leader with I don't know, like somewhere between 5 or 6 individuals under their team, and who is responsible for the well-being and the happiness and the engagement of those individuals. What, from a place from your expertise, what would be the advice to someone like that, in someone in that position?
Yeah. So, and we deal with it because that's exactly our sort of context. Our team leads and our managers have about 10, 5 to 10 people that they look after. I think the first thing is we say to look after themselves, right? Give yourself a break. Take a breath. It is not easy. And if you try to pretend you should be getting it all right all the time, you're setting yourself unrealistic expectations.
Yeah.
So be vulnerable, acknowledge where you're at, right? This is tough and it's not supposed to be easy. So once you have that and that permission to not have it right all the time, taking a breath and listening to what people are going on, being acutely attuned to where the individuals are at. And I feel like there's 2 things that have ultimately, and I think in terms of our leadership approach overall, right? One is care about the person, right? You can have all these peripheral processes, procedures, whatever, but it's all about that interpersonal connection that your direct team leader manager can have. So understanding what their greater goals, their greater drivers are, what they're working towards outside of work will help them achieve what they need to do at work, and it will allow you to be more attuned to what's going on in their world. The second thing is, with all the cultural initiatives, interpersonal building and connections, training, fun facilitation, the strongest connection in terms of overall happiness is results to our team. And if we focus on creating an environment that encourages them to succeed and do what they do best, everything else can help foster that, right?
I love that. Yeah.
We also just make sure that they set up to succeed. If people are winning day to day, they're hitting results, getting the targets, they feeling valued, feeling good about themselves and what they do, it's that balance. Then all this additional stuff that we layer on, the full value of it's actualized. And then they really feel connected. It's the booster, but it's not the core of what the task is, right?
That's so important. I was listening to an interview this morning with an organizational psychologist, and he was talking about how that second point that you just made is so spot on. He was talking about how if we don't listen and if we don't provide the opportunity for employees to speak up and tell exactly what they're feeling and come and be their full themselves at work, then they might not, they might stop showing interest at work, and they just close down, they won't share, they start thinking that their ideas don't count. So if you really empower them to deliver their best results, then that's probably the best way to make sure that they keep engaged and they feel part that they feel that they make part of the organization and they're adding value.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Love it. Well, I don't have any more questions for you today.
Right. Well,
I think we've covered a really good range.
I've got some more Wiggles playing in the background if you wanted me to send you the song list afterwards.
I really enjoyed this interview just because, not only because of you sharing all the insights and the lessons you've learned through the last 10 months doing remote and / hybrid work with your teams, but also because of the whole environment you're in at the moment.
Family I've created,
it just shows.
It's real.
I think
it's real.
It's so real, and I think everyone listening to this conversation will identify.
Welcome to my life.
It's the 2020 video conference one.
Maybe we
Tony,
can go viral. You never know.
Thank you so much for your time, Tony. I know you're super busy.
Really
we love your support here at Remote Social, and we're really keen to share this interview with our audience.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
All right, Tony.
Cheers.
We hope you enjoyed that conversation. If there's any particular topic you would like to hear about, reach out to us via our social media channels.